Welcome to the Expansive Astrology Podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Welcome back to the Expansive Astrology Podcast. It's episode 8. Today we are diving within the crab shell. We have a lot to cover today, but first things first. Let's see what the tarot cards have to say for the collective for the coming week. Take what you need and leave the rest. You know, a tarot reading for the collective is kind of a big ask, right? But these are just invitations, things to pay attention to, things to look out for. Stay open and see what might show up for you over the coming week. All right. Ooh, okay. First of all, what's present for us is the Queen of Pentacles, supported by the High Priestess. Well, hello. That's so, how lovely. How lovely. Oh, how lovely. Okay. Let's talk about it. What's present for us is the Queen of Pentacles. So the Queen of Pentacles is like the Queen of Earth, the Queen of Earth signs. And I always say that the Pentacles are about like how we as souls exist also as humans, you know. The Pentacles take us on a journey of like following our soul path and creating like a beautiful, nourishing garden for ourselves and others, using our soul seeds, using our soul's calling. And the Queen of Pentacles, like, just reminds us, invites us to return to the earth. She's all about cultivating the ability to tend, to hold space, to cultivate with what she's given, to heal. She reminds us of the importance of taking care of and tending to the parts of us that are exhausted. Like over and over, like that's this queen's whole thing. The Queen of Pentacles, again and again, like it's her life's work. It's her whole shtick. It's her brand, right? To return to what is nourishing and knowing, like knowing that she deserves it. Like knowing, like there's no other option for her besides to like be rooted in and operating from and always moving toward that which is nourishing for her and her world. So this energy is here reminding us and like permissioning us to serve ourselves, to nourish ourselves so that we can show up to serve others. We're not taught to do it that way. We're taught that it's selfish. You know, even that phrase, serve ourselves, like kind of brings up, I don't know about you. Okay, I'll speak for myself, but there's this part of my brain that's like, that's bad. I think actually it's a part of my brain that thinks that's a sin. You know, that's like a residual belief from growing up the way I grew up. That it's like a sin to put myself first. The Queen of Pentacles puts herself first, and it's not at all a negative thing. Like it's such an empowered, perfect choice for her. It's the perfect way to be for her. And she's the queen of the whole suit of pentacles, right? So, like, she holds so much responsibility, power, so much power. Um, and she represents like total alignment, total embodied, healthy, effective, like useful engagement with the pentacles. So when a court card like the Queen of Pentacles shows up, we're invited to play dress up with her. So you can rest assured that that it is in alignment. It is healthy. It is like permitted. You are permitted to serve yourself so that you can serve others. And as long as it's in alignment, as long as it's being driven by like your heart and not necessarily by ego, and as long as you're not doing harm to anyone, then this is like your calling. This is what we're invited to do, is to step into this. The Queen of Pentacles represents connecting to our resources, which means um making the most out of each drink of water that we're fortunate to have, each meal that we're privileged to eat, each therapy session, if you have access to therapy, like really making the most out of resourcing herself. What is the source of your wellness, right? And usually that's a huge topic. It's a huge question, like your wellness overall. What resource is that? What is the source of your health, happiness, wellness? What keeps you going? And how can we resource that? What are your resources? What is available to you that will um now I've said the word source so many times that it's lost all meaning to me. Fuck. This queen is the expert at making use of what is provided to her, of what is in front of her. She is the expert at that, like at that resourcing. She's an expert at that invisible self-care that nobody else may be privy to, right? But ultimately is the foundation of everything else that we do. What's present for us this week is a reminder not to skimp on that, to remember how important that is. The Queen of Pentacles is here to like nurture ourselves, our vessel, our bodies. Um, she's here to connect us to the supportive beauty of nature and, by extension, like the pentacles themselves. It's a fun idea. This card is the card that like cares for the caregiver and like serves the heart on all levels, really permissioning ourselves to serve ourselves, to engage with self-care in a way that like is more than bubble baths or like treating yourself to like a pedicure or a massage. Like those things are great. Do those things. Like totally. Do those things with permission and consider them important, right? Because they are. And the Queen of Pentacles is about self-care on a level that's like way beyond pedicures and massages and bubble baths. The Queen of Pentacles is about self-care in like um in a 24/7 365 kind of way. Again, with like every drink of water, everything she eats, the way she moves throughout the world, the way she speaks to others, the way she speaks to herself is all rooted in like that resourcing idea. It's all rooted in self-care. It's all rooted in like cultivating and nourishing and watering seeds of goodness. I could go on for 8 hours, but I'm gonna move on to, so supporting the Queen of Pentacles is the High Priestess. Oh, how beautiful. The High Priestess comes up as a invitation, a reminder to just explore and tap in with our intuition, whatever that means for you. The High Priestess is calling us back to center, inviting us to get quiet, 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 and to surrender and like to trust. The High Priestess is like a trusting that it's like an intuitive awakening. It's a reminder to center in with what you know. The High Priestess has like access to so much wisdom, like all the wisdom, literally all the wisdom. And we're reminded that like we have an inner High Priestess. So can you quiet your mind and recenter and tap in with your center, tap in with your inner knowing? Like the High Priestess is about not not doing, but rather like being, surrendering, centering. So keep that in mind. Not doing, but being. And even in embodying the High Priestess, or kind of inviting the High Priestess in, surrendering to the High Priestess, make sure that you're not doing that, but being it, right? Like being the High Priestess, or being um surrendered to or welcoming in the High Priestess. It's not about doing anything. It's about being. It's about being centered. So like I don't want anyone it kind of goes against the purpose if we get caught in like this idea of okay, I pulled the High Priestess, so now I have to go and do meditation. Like I need to do this thing. Like if it inspires you to meditate, if it inspires you to, engage with your tarot cards or to journal or like whatever inspires of you, like that's great. But I want to emphasize that it's about being and not doing. So, and that's kind of like a state of mind, right? You can meditate in a doing way, or you can like, I don't know. Let's see how this sounds. You can do meditation, or you can be meditative. I don't know if that makes sense. But you can't do the High Priestess. You can't. Um, in more ways than one. But you can't. You can't do the High Priestess, but we can be her. We can like surrender to that and invite it in. Can you come back to center and then move from there? So, centering and breathing, trusting and flowing. The High Priestess, an invitation to connect with our inner knowing, to connect with our intuition, is supporting us stepping into Queen of Pentacles energy, where we resource ourselves, we serve ourselves, we put ourselves first, we prioritize self-care in both the, fruity, bubbly, capitalist, and, ultimately, hopefully nourishing ways, in both those ways, and like the very important, quiet inner work that isn't maybe so pretty to talk about or look at or move through, but that kind of self care as well. That's what's present for us this week. The lesson is the Three of Swords. So, any sword card is about engaging with the brain in some sort of new way. And in the Three of Swords, we see a big giant heart. So this card asks us, How are you making things worse for yourself? This energy brings an invitation for us to check in with our thoughts, check in with how our brain is behaving, and making sure that we're not adding swords to the heart with our thoughts. So, some examples of this are when we think, I shouldn't feel this way. Sword to the heart makes it all worse. um, I should be different than I am, or I should have something else, or I should be somewhere that I'm not. Or if I tell somebody that, they won't accept me. I have to keep this to myself. All these, there are a million ways that we do this, that our thoughts kind of add swords to the heart. As a lesson, the Three of Swords tells us to like, shut up the brain. Like, don't stop trying to think your way out of your pain. It's time to like remove the swords from the heart of the matter. So, like, removing the brain and its stories, its evaluations, its judgments, its narratives on whatever the matter is, its narratives on the matters of the heart. Kind of removing our brain from that, removing the swords from the heart. And then Lindsay Mack says, it's about tending that wounded heart, putting our hands there, putting our hands to the heart and just like being with it and quieting down and, applying loving pressure where we can like stop the wounding, stop the bleeding. That's the lesson for the week. And, doing that is what's going to help the Queen of Pentacles and the High Priestess really shine for us. And finally, our anchor for the week. What do we do with all of this? What should we center in with and pay attention to? Our anchor for the week is the Six of Wands. What a beautiful freaking spread. The Six of Wands. Okay, so like traditionally they'll kind of say like, "Ooh, victory." Like, "Yes, you've done it." Like, "You are ready to be celebrated and like lift yourself up." And like I like that. So um invite that idea in, right? If like allow yourself to be celebrated. Don't reject compliments, things like that. But more than that, it's about like you celebrating yourself. I love the Six of Wands. I love the Six of Wands. The Six of Wands, like to me, is about getting on your high horse. Allowing yourself to get up there, baby, and sit on that high horse and like being like, you know what? Fuck you. I bought this horse. I named this horse. I broke this horse. I've worked with it and I'm gonna ride it right through the center of town with a giant flag. um the Six of Wands is like welcoming us to take pride in ourselves for exactly who you are right now. Right now. Celebrating ourselves in ways ultimately in ways that nobody else could. Right? It'd be lovely if the townspeople would set up a parade for us and but that's not going to happen. We have to kind of craft and create our own parade. We have to permission ourselves to get up on our high horse. Is there a way that you can do that? In a way that is aligned, you're not gonna make an ass of yourself. You're not gonna come across as like, self-centered or a narcissist, right? You're just gonna let yourself shine. You're just gonna own this horse. You're gonna get up on this high horse and ride it through town and let people see you in your pride. This card is about knowing your power and celebrating yourself and knowing that when we do that, it only brings more goodness, right? Like, let's be seriously consider what is the risk in that? Ask your brain if you struggle with this, like, why does that feel risky? Can you allow yourself to celebrate yourself? You have no reason not to. And the tarot wants you to. So, just to recap before I wrap it up, our anchor for the week is asking us to celebrate ourselves, to take pride in who we are and how far we've come. Our lesson for the week is reminding us to be careful with how we're thinking, making sure that our thoughts are nourishing and not actually causing harm to our gentle heart. And what's present for us is an invitation to play dress up with the Queen of Pentacles and prioritize self care. And that's supported by the idea that we all have access to an inner High Priestess. We all are intuitive, and we're invited to trust that, to practice honing that, to practice returning to our center and trusting our inner knowing. What a beautiful pull. I hope that it's feeling useful or inspiring for you too. Now, let's move into the expansive astrology for the week. We're talking about Cancer season. We're going deep within. So, this week and next week, we're using the anatomy of a crab to inspire all sorts of thoughts and discussions. This week, we're diving into the crab. So, I want you to consider the most vulnerable, needy, childlike, innocent, pure, and spirited version of yourself. Touch in with that version of yourself every day, but especially right now, today, for this conversation. Um, Listening to that version of yourself, listening from that version of yourself. As we have this conversation today, our focus this week is learning how to love ourselves from the inside out. Deeply, deeply knowing ourselves, having a deep understanding of ourselves, learning ourselves so deeply and intimately within our little shell, within our chariot, and the mechanisms that we use to protect ourselves. So start by considering what you protect. Where do you hide? What do you hide from yourself? What do you hide from the rest of the world? Some might consider this like shadow work. What is in your shadows? And what has impacted that, or what has caused that? Why are these things hidden from yourself or from others? There's like these two layers to it. But first, like, let's identify some of those things, kind of label them, and then looking at where did that come from? Like, why are they unacceptable? Why are they hidden? Why are they things that you resist? Why are they shadows? How were those things met when you were younger? What was your first encounter with some of those things? So, whether it's, a thing like anger or some sort of memory or like belief about yourself, beliefs about how the world operates, things that others might consider flaws or imperfections. Um, what is like deep within? What is your grief? What makes up your grief and your shame and your shadow? What were you taught about those things when you were young? How were those things handled when you were young, or how were they modeled? So we're looking at our attachment style, right? Um, how our childhood or how our experience with being raised or parented or cared for or not cared for, how our childhood impacts us in the here and now, how it impacts us today. And Cancer season brings an invitation to be with ourselves, a willingness to be with ourselves, to learn ourselves, to just shine a light on these things without necessarily like evaluating them. I mean, I'm kind of asking you to evaluate them. In a way, I'm asking you to evaluate like where did they come from, how these things were like, how they came to be in your world, in your mind, in your heart. I'm not asking you to evaluate them in like placing judgment on them or you know, try to stay really just curious. No judgment, only curiosity. We're just considering some of these things and looking at how we can empower ourselves to have a relationship with these things. It's not some sort of flaw or problem that we are where we are, right? But we can empower ourselves to look at the truth of the matter and adjust and move from there. So, um, but our willingness to do this work in a really honest, full out way is what helps to build our emotional intelligence. It helps to build our emotional security, right? This muscle is built the more and more we can be with our emotional selves, the more and more we allow that piece of us to be witnessed by ourselves and to be witnessed by others. It's all about learning how to have a sacred, knowing, informed relationship with our emotions. A relationship with our emotions that isn't harmful to ourselves or to others. How are you with emotion? For me, I mean, I have my master's in counseling and my moon in Pisces. So I would say I have a lot of comfort with emotions and with being emotional. I have a pretty good relationship with my emotions where, for the most part, I certainly have my areas to improve and grow and, pay attention to. But for the most part, I feel like I have a relationship with my emotions where I use them to inform me. I don't necessarily let them drive the car. I can stay relatively empowered and I can be very expressive too. I haven't always been that way, but that's kind of where I am today. And a lot of people are very shut off to their emotions. We're not taught how to have a deep, knowing, intimate relationship with our emotions. Right? How many words does the average person use to even describe their emotions? It's like happy, sad, mad, fine, which isn't even an emotion. Actually, fine is not an emotion. Good is not an emotion. Bad is not an emotion, right? But these are the very simple ways that we describe these very complex experiences that we have. And, not to like go on a tangent, but here's just a small tangent. The language that we use really limits our experience of things. I really love considering like these philosophical discussions on language and how um, language limits us, because by identifying and labeling a thing as a thing, it kind of takes away the possibility that it could be another thing. Tangent of all tangents, but it applies to our emotional selves. When we use the words like good, bad, fine, happy, sad, mad, and that's like it, when there are so many different emotions and expressions of emotion and different um like ways that emotions can be experienced and the ways that they can cross over and they're we're not taught the depth of our emotions. We're not taught how to handle our emotions. There's like this wave of gentle parents who are trying to do better, but at large, our society at large doesn't do this work. Or we're kind of just starting to um, prioritize this work or realize the importance of it. Emotions are not just like inconvenient things that come up and cause fights and embarrassment and trouble in our lives, right? They're experiences, they're data. They are meant to inform us and guide us. Their reactions, their responses to our experiences. And Cancer season, Cancer energy assists us with deepening our emotional intelligence, with deepening our emotional security. So this week we're going within. We're going into the shell where our emotion lives, where our intuition lives. We're going where like flow happens. I want to encourage you to like give your mind a break, give your thinking mind a break and try to be in flow. So like there's an invitation to step into the divine feminine, if you will. This does not have anything to do with gender. When I speak of the divine feminine, and I think for the most part, when astrologers think or speak of feminine traits, it's not about gender at all. It's a descriptor of traits like creativity, flow, receptivity, intuition, empathy, creativity, nurturing, nourishing, compassion, forgiveness, right? Like those are the things that we describe when we're talking about the divine feminine. And we all have access to the divine feminine. We all can be in flow with the divine feminine, or we can be very much not. And like disempowered feminine energy is catty, judgmental, shut off, dangerous, like a force to be reckoned with. Disempowered feminine energy. I want to focus on the divine feminine. So, and when we're talking about Cancer season, when we're talking about the crab, when we're talking about whether how we engage with our shell, uh, I really want you to consider like what is necessary for you to flourish? What is necessary for your expression of the divine feminine to flourish? What is necessary for you to feel safe and cherished and feel safe enough to come out of your shell and to flow? Right? The divine feminine, when it doesn't feel safe and supported and cherished, it can be really shut off and shut down. When it's like afraid, when it's threatened, and goes really within its crab shell. And I'll speak for myself. I don't have a whole lot of Cancer energy in my chart, but I have a lot of water energy. And I really relate with this idea because I also have anxiety and sometimes I dissociate. Just some things about me. um, Lord help me if I ever need to make like a Tinder bio again. That's exactly what whatever I just said is exactly what I would put in my dating profile. I um I tend to get really shut down if I feel unsafe or like if certain things become triggered or activated in me. I have a very protective, crab shell. I get really shut down and shut off and I like kind of will go offline. I'll go into my shell, I'll withdraw. My husband will be like, uh-oh, she's gone, she's offline, right? Um, and it's just something that like I work on, tending while I'm in that space, noticing it as soon as possible, doing any tending work that I'm needing in that moment, and like coming back online, reemerging from my shell as soon as I can, as soon as I feel safe. And I have to cultivate that safety for myself. My And part of cultivating that safety for myself is placing myself in an environment that will also, like, do that for me, but it starts with me. So, anyway, tell me I'm not the only one. Do you relate with that? When do you retreat? When do you shut off? When do you give up? When do you go into your shell? When do you throw in the towel and kind of say, "You know what? I'm not being seen. I'm not being heard. I'm not being witnessed. It's not safe for me to say anymore, stand up anymore. I give up. I'm going to retreat. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to close off." Sometimes that is the perfectly appropriate, healthy, helpful response to a thing. It's not a problem until or unless it is a problem. Sometimes we do need to retreat. Sometimes we do need to know, like, you know, I'm not being seen. It's not safe for me to try. I give up. I'm done. And even in those moments, um, I think the key is making sure that if you're in that moment, that you're coming at it from an awake, aware, open place and not an egoic, hardened, shut down, closed off place, you know? And wherever we are, whatever is going on, we can protect ourselves without closing off our heart. And I think that's what Cancer is kind of here to assist us in learning how to be soft and gushy without being hardened. And both of those pieces of the crab are integral. They're both important. They're both valuable. They're both just as worthy. And Cancer season just has us evaluating like how we engage with all those parts of us. So I speak about in my like private one-on-one work a lot, like employing your inner advocate. And, I really picture our inner advocate, my personal inner advocate, like wears a low bun and like librarian glasses and a pencil skirt, and you can hear her heels clacking down the hallway, and she don't give a fuck. Like, she's going to come in and she's going to stand up for what I need, especially when I am feeling anxious or afraid or I'm having a hard time standing up for myself. I kind of like imagine this inner advocate inside of me who would advocate for anybody else, pretty expertly and shamelessly. But then when it comes for me, it's much more difficult, right? But I can employ this inner advocate who comes out and will say, "It's time for Melissa to take her lunch," or, whatever it is. Or I don't speak in the third person, but you get what I'm saying. I had a similar thought with Cancer season where, like, can you employ your most empowered, most aligned, most effective, healthy, helpful, um, inner mom? Mhm. Cancer brings like this aligned, empowered mom energy, uh, who, very similar to our inner advocate. Our inner mom will like swoop in and stand up for you. She'll appreciate your artwork and hang it on the fridge, even if it's not perfect. Your empowered inner mom will lovingly tell you that it's time to get to bed. You know, she'll make you nourishing soups. Your empowered inner mom is not guilt tripping. She's not controlling. She's not overbearing. She's not critical or possessive. Your empowered inner mom is here you can employ her to comfort you, to compliment you, to nurture you when you need it, to encourage you when you need it, to tuck you in at night and say sweet dreams. Can you provide that for yourself? I think Cancer really brings a wonderful invitation to do that too. Cancer energy is divine, it's powerful. Like, ruled by the moon. Compare yourself to the moon. Start to learn your phases. Start to learn that you are whole no matter what phase you're in. Start to honor your phases so much that you don't expect yourself to show up the same every single day. We're finding home within, no matter where you are, even in the middle of a conversation, even in the middle of a stressful event, even in the middle of, you know, whatever's going on, finding home within, no matter where you are. Like knowing yourself so deeply and constantly checking in with yourself and being with yourself, being with what's coming up for you in a really accepting, loving, nurturing way. What is inside of you? Like, let's dive into the crab shell. What lurks inside? What exists, what lives, what thrives inside of you in that shell? Usually people will kind of consider their emotions, their intuition, their inner child, their shadows. These are the things that we kind of keep within, right? So, in honor of those pieces of you, I love what Roy Gillette says the invitation of Cancer is. There's this quote. Roy Gillette says that Cancer brings an invitation to behave in everything we do as if we are caring for a child with nothing left to chance. We want our world to feel comfortable and safe, to pour out pearls of profound kindness from our deepest private selves. Unquote. That feels so important during Cancer season. Can you move throughout the world as though you're caring for a child? Can you cultivate a world of comfort and safety? Cancer knows how to do that. Cancer knows how to nurture and how to love. And it's so caring, so loving. And it's like loyal. It's really, it has like a strength in creating relationships and creating a sense of home and acceptance and nurturing. It's like so incredible. And there are some risks to that, some things to just look out for. Cancer can be over giving, over committing, putting too many eggs in one basket, getting too ahead of itself, like giving too much of itself. And, you know, there are serious consequences to doing that, especially if our urgency to give, our urgency to nurture and care is coming from a sense of hurt or is coming from a need for like control. If we're approaching our relationships from that kind of place, we're never actually going to heal the hurt that's coming from. Like that healing has to come from within, you know? We can't love others and nurture others our way into like caring for ourselves. And this is why Gemini comes first. It's another reason Gemini comes first. Because Gemini rules the Lover's card, and the Lover's card like has us check in with where we're displacing, our sense of wholeness, our sense of lovability on someone or something outside of ourselves. That's foundational for this work in Cancer, which is so nourishing and so loving. But just making sure that your giving, that your care isn't coming from a place of fear, that it's not coming from a place of pain and hurt, but that it's coming from a place of true loving and giving, because when it's coming from a place of hurt, when it's coming from that needy, fearful place, that's when we really risk over giving. We risk being taken advantage of. And we can do that with anything. Anytime that we're approaching a relationship or, a thing from some sort of disempowered, fearful, um, a scarcity-based, grabby, needy, overbearing, or unaligned place, it's an opportunity to notice that disempowered place, and see how we can shift into the empowered version of that. So We notice when we're being disempowered. We notice when we're over exerting ourselves, when we're over giving of ourselves. We take note curiously, not critically. We take note, and then you can, like, from that point, you, like, enter into your shell, and you're like, that's where you learn about what just happened, and you gain a deeper understanding of what that deeper need is that was operating. What was the deeper need that was trying to be met with that disempowered behavior? And then you're like, "Oh, okay, okay, okay. So I just kind of exploded and got angry and yelled and slammed the door because I wasn't feeling understood or heard. Okay, okay, I see, I see, I see." Not cute behavior, but now you can reemerge from the shell and in a more in a better informed way, where now you see, like, what was going on for you, what the need was. The need is to be heard, and you can get that need met in an empowered way that will actually get that need met, that will preserve your sense of self-respect, that will preserve your relationships. But the work is in noticing when a disempowered behavior is coming up for you, taking that as a cue to ask yourself, like, what is actually going on? What is the deeper need here? How can I get that need met in a way that is more effective and more empowered? Because ultimately, we have to get these needs met from an empowered place. That's how we tend our wounds. That's how we fix the hurt. Like, that's how we fill ourselves from within. Our hurt, our wounds, our pain cannot be rectified by loving others. It can't. It cannot be filled by proving that you are lovable to others. So this brings up an important question. Where do you end and others begin? Where do I end and others begin? Where does my responsibility for others end and their responsibility for themselves end? Where does my responsibility for this relationship end and theirs begin? Having a deep and knowing relationship with yourself so that you can have appropriate boundaries, meaning, like, both knowing when and where and what you won't put up with, and knowing what is yours and what is not yours without using your claws. No pinchers. Like, maintaining appropriate boundaries. Pinchers not necessary, but, like, managing any codependency, not taking on other people's shit. You can help people, you can support people, you can empathize with people, you can support people in their healing, right? But you have to know what is your responsibility and what is not. Cancer is way too good at giving and giving and giving and showing up and loving without receiving. And I'm, like, sick of it. I'm sick of seeing it. And as humans, I think we have this, like, craving for permanency. We have this craving for permanent attachment. Most of us, not everyone, right? But, like, our brain really feels safe when we can say, like, our relationship is going to last forever, right? Not and some people will say, like, not only this lifetime but all lifetimes. I'll meet you in the next lifetime. Like, we are there's something about the idea of, like, permanency, permanent attachment that many of us really find comfort in. And again, like, there's a risk in that. It's okay to, like, dream of that or hold that as a desire or a goal. And it's also very important to just be aware of the risks of that, which include, that lover's work of not displacing our sense of worth on something outside of us, like reclaiming our worth in that way and building from there. And also, like, we don't want to be taken for granted in the name of, like, attachment, in the name of hope that, like, this will be like a permanent thing or a permanent attachment. As beautiful and gushy and loving and nurturing and caring and motherly and like just so important and beautiful as Cancer can be, we must watch out for, those risks of giving too much of ourselves, of putting too much, like investing too much in any one thing. How can you be all of those beautiful things that Cancer is so good at and also have boundaries? And here's the thing about Cancer. I think of like, it's kind of not fair because crabs don't really have a choice in the matter, but the way crabs move side to side kind of inspires this idea of like not being direct. And then we think of like water energy. Okay, so Cancer is so good at giving and giving and giving and nurturing and nourishing and being loyal and creating a sense of home and acceptance and like so great at that, right? And it will sacrifice itself in the name of doing that. It will keep its we have to be careful about what we keep within our shell, what we bottle up. We have to be careful about not being direct and sidestepping certain things because then when the thing needs to be acknowledged or tended to or paid attention to or apologized for or whatever, when the dam breaks, it can be deadly. It can be devastating. And like we as humans, the crab is most effective when it uses its pinchers, right? But we as humans are usually most effective when we can put our pinchers away and approach a situation, you know, in a non-threatening without the pinchers. Can you get comfortable with having boundaries, with standing up for yourself? Can you get comfortable with confrontation without the pinchers? My lifelong best friend is a Cancer, and she is so inspiring to me. Like, she is the best friend to so many people. Like, she's a genius at being a friend. Like, there's no other way to put it. I've never known another person to have as many best friends as my best friend has, right? Like, she is such a good friend to so many people. And she's loving, caring, nurturing, generous, thoughtful, loyal, all of these beautiful things that Cancer is. And then every now and then, given like just the right scenario, she'll call me up and she'll be like, I'm going to catch a charge. Like she never has in her life. She's never, gotten in trouble with the law in her life. Um, and yet, like when those pinchers need to come out, like she's willing to, she's willing to catch a charge. Like, and I love it. And it's Cancer. It's like an example of those pinchers. So this week is about diving inward, learning our innards, learning what makes us tick, practicing like emotional intelligence, practicing touching in with our emotions and not letting them drive the car, but letting them inform us where we're going and what we're needing. And next week, we're going to talk about like how we defend that, how we have a shell in a way that is protective, but that isn't limiting, you know? Um, so yeah, next week we'll talk about how to bring that the depths of yourself to the world, how to defend it in the world, how you create effective boundaries. But first, the astrological forecast for the week. Today is the new moon in Cancer. So we're planting seeds, we're welcoming in, we're setting intentions around the Cancer energy that we really want to foster and tap in with and flow with for the rest of the year. And Neptune went retrograde today. And next week on the 5th, which is the date of the next upload, but I'll mention it now. um, on the 5th, Mars enters Taurus and Mercury enters Cancer. Now, I want to try something new, and you tell me what you think, okay? um, I'm keeping these astrological forecasts really brief because I don't do synastry. Like, so, I'm not qualified to speak on it. I'm not going to. I think it's helpful and kind of fun and useful to know what's going on in the sky, but I am not here to provide any interpretations on what that means. One day, as I like continue learning and growing, um, maybe one day, but I'm not going to speak on anything I don't feel qualified to speak on, and there are other people out there for that. But one thing I was wondering about adding to these astrological forecasts is when the moon is void of course. So, what does that mean? So, the moon travels through the 12 signs in about 28 days. And the moon is said to be void of course when it is between signs, right? Which can last for just a few minutes to several hours. So, of course, when the moon is void of course, which happens like, you know, up to 12 times a month, success is possible during those times, of course. I don't think these are like hard and fast rules. I don't think we should necessarily, panic about this or, say no to opportunities or, like overly structure our lives around this. But it might be something to just explore and pay attention to. Al Morrison, who was a 20th century astrologer who really, as far as, as far as I know, Al Morrison really pioneered the research of the void moon. He said, quote, "Every couple of days there comes a time which is best used to subjective, spiritual, non-material concerns like prayer, yoga, play, psychotherapy, or passive experience, sleep, or meditation. This period may last a few seconds, or it may be 3 days and nights in a single session. You may call it a silly season or a vacation from normal living. Decision making in such periods turns out later to be unrealistic. Creativity diverges into unplanned directions, improvisations, false starts, error. If you buy any object, you never use it fully. Enterprises founded while the moon is void of course do fail after a long and costly effort. Human judgment is more fallible than usual during the time the moon is void of course. This is the principal factor in all observed experience thus far. Routine proceeds readily, but often requires an adjustment later. Defects or shortages come to light. Delay and frustration are commonly experienced while the moon is void of course." Unquote. So it's an interesting thing to consider. I'm going to tell you when in the next week the moon will be void of course. And we can just, get curious, not expect, problems, not expect failures, not expect things to go awry, but just staying curious and open and seeing what does happen during these periods of time. What would it be like if we used these periods of time as excuses to do some of that more spiritual, non-material activity? Let's just see what comes up. So I'm gonna tell you there's like 3 or 4 periods of time. I'm gonna tell you what they are. Put them in your phone or don't. But I am welcoming some feedback on if this is maybe I'll try it for the next couple of weeks. I'll keep this in the astrological forecast for the next couple of weeks, and, I'm open to hearing if it just, isn't useful or if it's, like, too much information or, whatever. I don't know. You tell me. And all of these are in Eastern Daylight Time. So on the 30th, June 30th, the moon is void of course from 4:14 until it enters Leo at 8:40 in the evening. It's void of course again on the 3rd from early in the morning at 5:59 until it enters Virgo at 8:31 in the morning. And then it's void of course again on Tuesday the 5th from 2:04 in the afternoon until it enters Libra at 6:25 in the evening. So again, maybe just throw these times in your phone calendar and let me emphasize, like, be careful about self-fulfilling prophecy type stuff. Like, if you say, "Oh, no, on the 30th from 4:15 in the afternoon until 8:40 at night, it's gonna be a terrible time, and everything that I do is gonna go wrong, it's gonna be Murphy's Law of the universe," like, um, then if you really approach it that way, then that'll probably come true, and we don't want that to happen. It doesn't have to be that way, right? So rather, if you're gonna kind of experiment with this, just let it be an experiment, you know? Let's see what comes up. Next week, we'll talk about the crab shell and the chariot and how we defend ourselves, how we use our pinchers as human beings. I will see you then. I can't thank you enough for being here. Until next time, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.